How to put fear of God, law, into Wi-Fi hacking neighbors. I live in an apartment and some new guys have apparently moved into one of the apartments. They have been shamelessly hacking into my Wi-Fi. Mine was initially a WEP encrypted network, and out of laziness I just limited and reserved the IPS on my router for the people in my house. Yesterday I had to free up an IP for a guest in my house, but before he could join the network these guys connected it. I have changed my encryption to WPA2 and hope they don't have the hardware/patience required to hack into it, but there are many Wi-Fi networks in my apartment, most of which are secured using WEP. I don't really want to call the police on them. Is there any way to deter them from misusing other people's Wi-Fi? I have gone through. I think someone else has access to my wireless network. What next? But I have already taken the steps mentioned there.
One cool thing that I did back in the day was created a separate router off of my normal network. I created a VLAN with the router and had the router plugged into a separate machine. The separate machine had two NICs, one for the router and the other to my normal network. I made the separate machine act as a gateway for the router. Any and all traffic from the guest router would be sent through the gateway machine. I then tweaked the Wi-Fi experience for my guests. I throttled the bandwidth down to dial-up speeds. Anyone who used the guest access point would pull their hairs out. I did allow JPG/PNG/TIFF/BMP files to download at full speeds. Unfortunately for the end user, I made them all blurry and upside down. Certain sites like Facebook, MySpace, random torrent sites based on keywords, and any site flagged as pornography would automatically redirect them to a Rickroll video. It was more of an educational project to see how I would handle manipulating traffic going through a gateway. Ended up retiring the project since I didn't want to upset the neighbors too much. To directly answer your question about instilling the fear of God into Wi-Fi leechers, another option, never did this but shouldn't be too hard, is to on any page that the users visit while on your guest network, have a floating div, following their mouse within the browser saying, "Jesus is watching you." Tutorial.
While stealing bandwidth can cost the bill per in high usage fees, etc., I wouldn't expect it to be treated as a serious crime in all places. Note in places where the act of breaking into the network, assuming it's got some security, then you could get a prosecution on that basis, but securing a conviction could be time-consuming and expensive, especially if the access point is either unsecured or only lightly secured. There's no direct action you can really take. I think that the only thing that would be reasonable for you to do is to talk to your other neighbors individually and privately to explain the problem to them and possibly offer to help them secure their networks too. In fact, you should inform them of the problem so that they are aware of the potential issues, possibly higher bills, legal issues if the freeloader downloads something illegal, etc. Obviously, if you do offer assistance and they accept, this will mean that they'll come back to you with all their support questions in the future, but that's really your call.
Here's something similar to what Cobalt's described, with more technical details on how to achieve it. This URL, a bit dated.
If you set up WPA encryption and MAC address filtering, I'd say you've done most of what's reasonable. If your router supports WPS Wi-Fi protected setup, make sure to disable it as well, due to its glaring security flaws. I ran into the same situation when at school, but instead of hacking WEP, they guessed my passphrase and changed the SSID of my network, setting it to change your password or something. If you're still fuming over it, I'd say instead of perpetuating the cycle of ill will, channel that hate into something more constructive. Look into further ways of hardening your network, or perhaps redirect that energy into a constructive project of some sort until you've forgotten about it or have gotten past the incident and don't care about it anymore.
If you are already using WPA2 with MAC address filtering and they still get in, then you could consider the following ideas. Use a really long random password which will take forever to crack and change it frequently. Or, although I could never legally recommend this, let's call this a theory, a way to more than likely permanently scare them off would be to capture all of their traffic and note all of their credentials. Then confront them with non-public information about themselves off of one of their social media sites, etc. If that's not enough, they could reunite with their ex publicly, which could stir some things up with the current partner. However, this might open you up to legal action against you, so again, I cannot advise it. I would only call it a theoretical application. Or, Email them, get their email addresses by sniffing their traffic, that you are monitoring your network and that you have all logs that they are connecting without permission and that you will be suing them for the use of your bandwidth and report them directly to any organizations if they are breaking any laws, illegally downloading movies, music, etc. since your internet provider will hold you responsible for what's done on your network. I would look up small claims court in your state and see what the maximum damages are allowed and file suit. Also, if you can get video with audio or even just audio recordings of the neighbor telling you off while admitting guilt that they are digitally trespassing and stealing, you may be able to use that in court depending on your state without getting permission from them to record everything. If you can use the recordings, I don't know a judge who wouldn't rule in your favor regardless of how computarded they might be since the neighbor admitted guilt in a recording. Good luck.